A streak of aerodynamic perfection shoots across the German landscape. At 200 plus kilometers an hour, it leaves everything else in the dust. So fast that 65,000 people count on it every day to get them where they're going. So safe that in 7 years of service, Germany's intercity express trains travel more than 1 billion kilometers without a serious accident. Until June 3rd, 1998. ICE train number 884 closes in on the small town of Eschede. Suddenly, passengers hear a loud bang, like an explosion. The train starts to shake. A little further down the track, catastrophe. In less than 5 seconds, the pride of Germany's rail fleet derails and piles into a concrete bridge. "101 dead, 105 injured. Passengers like Udo Bausch so seriously hurt that his life will never be the same again. It's the worst high-speed rail disaster ever. Was Intercity Express train number 884 derailed by something on the track? Was there a problem with the bridge? Or was there a flaw in the train itself? Investigators must work quickly to find out if this was a freak accident or if other trains and other passengers are at risk. The town of Eschede in northern Germany, population 4,000. A quiet little town where not much happens. Such a small dot on the map that intercity express trains just whip right through without stopping. Andreas Effenhausen, a local policeman, has patrolled this area for years. On the morning of June 3rd, 1998, Effenhausen started work earlier than usual.
June 3rd is my daughter's birthday, so that's why I took the early shift that day, so I would be free in the afternoon. I went to work in the morning together with my partner on regular patrol duty.
That regular patrol will become one of the most irregular in his career. And this peaceful little town will lose its anonymity. Soon, the whole world will know about Eschede. Its name will be associated with disaster. "10:30 a.m. The train pulls into Hanover Station, 50 kilometers southwest of Eschede. This will be the last stop before its final destination, Hamburg. 30-year-old Udo Bausch, a businessman, is heading there for a meeting. He has a lot on his mind.
My wife took me to the train that day, which was unusual. I got in, looked for a single compartment in order to be able to prepare myself for the meeting. I found a single compartment so I could work on the train, sat down, and opened my laptop.
10:33 a.m. Intercity Express train number 884 leaves Hanover Station. Outside city limits, it accelerates to 200 kilometers per hour. At the front of the train, in carriage number 1, Sigrid Schubert is en route north for a seaside holiday along with her child Andre and boyfriend Jörg Dittmann.
We were just settling down to sleep for a bit. We took off our shoes to be more comfortable. Andre was sitting beside the window, Jörg across from me.
A couple of minutes before 11 a.m. Suddenly, a loud noise jolts the passengers at the front of the train.
All of a sudden, there was a huge explosion. I thought a bomb had exploded.
It was an incredible sound, like a plane breaking through the sound barrier. It was right beside my ear.
The train starts to rattle and shake.
Then the floor split open below us. I don't know exactly what it was, but something came shooting through the floor.
We looked at each other horrified. I was saying to myself, wow, this is incredible. This is not good. And then I said to Sigrid and Andre, come on, let's get out of here.
Sigrid and Andre are finding it hard to keep their balance. They crawl back into carriage number 2 and huddle on the floor.
As I was running, the carriages had started to skid and rattle. I told the conductor something serious has happened in the front.
Amazingly, passengers at the back of the train don't feel those first signs of trouble. Udo Bausch continues to work. Little does he know, disaster is just moments away.
Back in carriage number 12, I didn't really notice the rattling noise, as was reported by other passengers. Maybe because I was so engrossed in my work, I didn't really take it seriously.
The train is approaching a bridge underpass, a road crossing on the outskirts of Eschede. Jörg and the conductor have just made it back to carriage number 1.
When we arrived at our compartment, and when I wanted to point to what had happened, there was a huge bang, a boom.
It was so big, at first we thought we had collided with another train. And then everything happened very fast.
And then I saw a bright light. And I was thinking, Jörg, your luck has simply run out.
The time is 10:59 a.m.
Within seconds, I was hurled around in the train compartment from left to right, from up to down.
In Eschede, people hear a crash. "12 kilometers away, Officer Effenhausen gets an urgent call to rush to Eschede. He is among the first to arrive at the crash site.
And I saw this train there, pushed together, crushed, all these pieces. At first I was completely devastated. What struck me was this terrible silence. There were no sounds. Total quiet, not a bird chirping. Nothing that can normally be heard at this time of year. You can only describe it as deathly quiet.
Inside carriage number 1, Jörg and the conductor cannot believe they are still alive.
I immediately looked back to see if the second carriage was still there, and then I could see that it was slanted, and then I saw Sigrid and Andre, and then I asked them if they were okay and got them out of the carriage.
In what remains of carriage number 12, Udo Bausch is not so lucky. He lies crushed in the wreckage.
I could tell that I must be badly hurt, that I must have broken a lot of bones, because I could feel a lot of pain. especially on my left side. At that moment, I was terrified. I thought I would never get out of there, that my whole life was destroyed.
By now, news of the accident is spreading quickly. Matthias Stahlmann, a local pastor, gets word that his help is urgently needed.
The dispatcher then described to me that there was a train that had crashed into a bridge, that a car had been obstructing the track. They were thinking about 20 dead.
In fact, 96 passengers on train number 884 died instantly. Officer Effenhausen has started to hunt through the wreckage. He is still shaken, but he knows what he has to do.
Bin dann mehr so aus dem Antrieb raus einfach losgegangen.
Instinctively, I started moving. Walked around the train and came to a spot where I just started calling hello. I don't know why I said that.
But investigators need answers quickly. Emergency crews have discovered an automobile under the wreckage. Did it cause the accident? Or did something else make Intercity Express train number 884 derail? Was there something on the track? Could it have been a problem with the bridge? Or was there a flaw in the train itself? As a precaution, 60 Intercity Express trains are taken out of service for inspection. For all remaining trains, speed limits are drastically reduced. The investigators are under a lot of pressure to come up with answers so Germany can restore train service and the faith of a horrified public. Rescuers and investigators rush to the crash site of Intercity Express train number 884 near Eschede in northern Germany. None of the rescuers are prepared for the scene of devastation.
My first thought actually was, it can't be real. This is staged. They are doing catastrophe training. This can't be. The next thought crossing your mind then is, but who would ruin an entire ICE train? It must be real.
Officer Andreas Effenhausen, a local policeman, has arrived on site minutes after the crash. He picks through the wreckage around carriage number 12. It seems impossible that anyone has survived in this part of the train, but Effenhausen calls out in the eerie silence.
Ich hatte irgendwann die Stimme gehört in meinem Lebensretter, dem Andreas, und habe dann natürlich flehend.
At some point, I heard the voice of my lifesaver, Andreas. I reacted immediately and called, "Hello, hello, I'm here. My name is Udo Bauch. Can you please help me? I was so afraid of dying. I was ecstatic to hear his
Das
voice."
sind im Einzelnen los.
Effenhausen rushes to get a rescue team to carriage number 12. There's so much rubble over such a big area that every step is a challenge. Investigators have now joined rescuers at the accident site, and they too are poring over the wreckage.
You question eyewitnesses to try to get a picture of what has happened.
Gunnar Bosa is an engineer hired to investigate the accident for the state attorney. He knows from experience that every second counts once investigators hit the scene.
You have to check the design of the engine drive. You have to note exactly what position the carriages are in. You have to check out both the direction the train was going and the direction it was coming from, looking for any irregularities that could have caused the accident.
By now, the media has caught wind of what's happened at Eschede. The site is crawling with reporters and camera crews.
Nobody wanted to believe it.
Claudia Beplar-Kanaki is a television reporter who covered the story.
Disbelief, really, spread all over Germany.
Within hours, the accident is making headlines around the world.
Bob Lobby?
This accident, an ocean away, is of big interest to Bob Lobby at the National Transportation and Safety Board in Washington.
This morning? It happened this morning?
The United States is in the process of starting up its own high-speed service, and if there are lessons to be learned from Eschede, they need to know now.
Okay. I'll be there as soon as I can.
He and a team get on a plane to Germany to see what they can learn.
It affected everybody in the high-speed rail industry because high-speed rail up to that point had been so safe.
Back at the accident site, in the rush to get the first news reports out, journalists speculate that a demolished automobile under the wreckage played a role.
Today's disaster started with a car going through the road bridge's flimsy barrier and crashing on its side onto the line. Within moments, it was hit by the train going at 125 miles an hour.
Will the investigators find evidence that supports this theory?
The evidence will only last so long. It's perishable. As rescue operations are going on, as wreckage is cleared, things will change and evidence can be lost.
At this site, the chances of disturbing evidence are big. Almost 2,000 people are taking part in the rescue. Officer Andreas Effinghausen has alerted paramedics that Udo Bausch is trapped in carriage number 12.
But I was still afraid. How long is this going to take? My pain was getting worse.
Effinghausen has joined one of the emergency teams. Inside the demolished carriages, they see things too terrible to describe. Bodies mangled and dismembered on impact. But there's another scene that will haunt Effinghausen long after the wreckage is gone.
On the first bench on the right side, an elderly couple was sitting there, looking as if they were asleep, their heads slightly tilted forward, like they were sleeping. That was the impression. They were still sitting there in their seats, but they were both dead.
The bodies were covered, and we were asked by firemen to say a brief prayer and give a blessing.
For the investigators, there is one small mercy. The accident site is divided into two distinct parts by the demolished bridge. Mark Wille, with Germany's Federal Department of Railways, says they had to come up with another way to get there.
We were lucky because the investigators could go into areas where no rescue action was taking place. That is, the areas in front of the bridge and ahead of the accident scene.
In front of the bridge are the first 4 carriages, the ones that made it through before the bridge collapsed. Carriages 1 and 2 are derailed, but sitting on the track. There's some damage, including a broken wheel on carriage number 1. Carriage number 3 is in worse shape. It looks like it hit something before it came to a stop. Carriage number 4 has left the track altogether.
The fourth car passed under the bridge and then drove to the right, out into the field, tumbled over, and came to a rest diagonal to the track.
The lead locomotive that was pulling the train is nowhere in sight. That's because it automatically decoupled from the rest of the train and traveled by itself for more than a kilometer before coming to a stop past Eschede station. That lead locomotive provides investigators with a key clue.
We could see that the engine, that is, the locomotive at the front of the train, was undamaged.
The fact that the engine's not damaged proves that there couldn't have been a car in the path of the oncoming locomotive. But there is a vehicle under the wreckage. How did it get there? And where are its occupants? Today's high-speed trains regularly exceed 200 kilometers an hour, and in testing have reached a breathtaking 500 kilometers an hour. Getting there quickly is what it's all about. And until June 1998, not many passengers thought about the price of speed. The crash of Intercity Express train number 884 outside the German town of Eschede presents a stark illustration. The higher the speed, the more violent the impact, and the greater the human toll. Almost 100 people died instantly, and many survivors are still trapped, including Udo Bausch in the wreckage of carriage number 12.
Und dann kann ich mich erinnern, wie dann ein Arzt oder
And then I remember a doctor or a paramedic giving me a needle because of the severe pain. And as a side effect of the painkiller, my breathing stopped.
Nebenwirkung dieses Schmerzmittels hatte ich Atemstillstand.
By then, he has slipped into a coma. His skull is broken in 2 places, his jaw in 4 different places. He also has shattered bones in his face and shoulder, and he's losing massive amounts of blood from a wound in his leg. A helicopter rushes him to hospital. By 1:30 p.m., 2.5 hours after the fatal crash, most of the injured have been taken to hospitals across northern Germany. But in the end, 101 people are dead. The victims include 2 people who had not been passengers on the train. Investigators are surprised to discover that they were railway maintenance workers. They were working near the bridge as the train came through. Their automobile had been parked beside the track, and that's the vehicle that investigators had discovered under the wreckage. In fact, the car had nothing to do with the accident. It was in the wrong place at the wrong time and got swept up in the derailment. So that's one mystery solved, but there are others. What role did the bridge play? The last 7 carriages and the rear locomotive plowed right into it. Yet, it's in the front part of the train that made it under the bridge that investigators find their first solid clue. An 8-meter-long piece of rail has shot through the floor.
Half of the guardrail went from the bottom of the first car all the way through the car up through the roof. The second piece of guardrail that broke off skewered the first 2 cars together and traveled actually right through the passenger vestibule that connects the 2 cars and embedded itself in the frame of the second car.
How did a piece of rail get ripped up and skewer 2 carriages together?
It could not have arrived there as a result of the train leaving the track. Something must have happened before that. It had to be quickly investigated.
And there's something else to explore. On the stretch of track leading up to the bridge, investigators come across bizarre markings on the concrete railroad ties. Could this lead them to the cause of the accident? Or is it a false lead, taking them down the track to a dead end? It is the afternoon of June 3rd, 1998, a few hours after a high-speed train has crashed in northern Germany. The accident investigators seem to be making progress. They've zeroed in on an intriguing trail of damage marks on the concrete ties. They follow the marks back in the direction the train was coming from. The marks start 5.5 kilometers before the accident site. And nearby, investigators discover small pieces of debris.
Des Wagenkastens von diesem Mittelwagen.
The parts from the undercarriage consisted of pieces that were 5 to 10 centimeters in size, covered with plastic and metal.
There are also tiny chunks of rubber material, which turn out to be important evidence. It's exactly the kind of material found inside the wheels of Germany's high-speed trains. What does it mean? Investigators are now able to make a crucial connection between the bits of rubber and something they spotted earlier at the accident site. Something they had noticed on carriage number 1, on the rear bogie, or swivel assembly. A broken wheel. It's a major breakthrough.
The train was coming from Hanover on the left track here. About 5.5 kilometers before the bridge, the wheel on the rear bogie of the first carriage broke.
The break is in the rim, the outside layer of the wheel, the part that comes into contact with the track. The broken rim separates from the inner part of the wheel and gets caught under the train. That explains what passengers in carriage number 1 heard just before the crash.
There was this terrible, crazy bang, exactly under the armrest of Sigrid and Andre.
They didn't realize it at the time, but the loud bang was the wheel rim breaking and slamming into the bogie with such force that the floor beneath them literally split open. But what caused the wheel to break? Is it possible it slammed into something on the track? Investigators examine the area where the wheel broke and quickly rule out this scenario. There's no sign of anything on the track, except the small pieces of debris that have come off the train. So, is it possible there was a fatal flaw in the wheel itself? This is a key question. Everyone wants to know whether this was one tragic, isolated incident, or whether other wheels are putting other trains at risk. As investigators delve into the wheel's history, they discover that ever since Germany's intercity express trains first hit the track in the early 90s, they've been controversial. In the beginning, they were equipped with something called the monoblock wheel.
Well, a monoblock wheel is made of cast steel. It's one piece. If you hit it with a hammer, it'll ring like a bell.
Monoblock wheels are similar to the wheels on other high-speed trains around the world, like those in Japan and France. But when German rail executives took test rides on the first intercity express trains, they were less than impressed. The monoblock wheels created vibrations, an uncomfortable ride.
So the thinking was, what could be done to solve the problem?
Professor Hans-Jürgen Kuhlwetter is a retired lawyer who used to work for the Federal Department of Railways.
I myself once rode in such a train, and when you were traveling at more than 120 kilometers per hour, you could feel a vibration in your diaphragm that made you sick, and the car would empty in minutes because the passengers went to another car.
The rail executives were very disappointed with those vibrations. High-speed trains are supposed to compete for business with air travel. Customers will pay extra for speed, but only if they also get comfort.
When those loud noises were detected, executives from the railroad management who were sitting on the train evidently then exerted a lot of pressure and demanded an immediate solution.
One solution would have been to replace the train's steel spring suspension with air suspension. But the manufacturer was not equipped for such a massive overhaul. It would have meant retooling the factory at great cost. The railway chose a simpler and less expensive solution. In 1992, intercity express trains are fitted with a different kind of wheel, the resilient wheel.
The wheel consists of an inside disc, a layer of rubber elements, and a wheel rim.
So here's how it works. The steel disc forms the center of the wheel and attaches to the axle. Chunks of rubber are inserted between this part of the wheel and the outer steel wheel rim to create a cushion effect. The rubber absorbs vibrations, so even at speeds of more than 200 kilometers an hour, passengers enjoy a smooth, comfortable ride. While it is the first time that resilient wheels are used on high-speed vehicles, the technology is not new.
Resilient wheels were commonly used and still are commonly used on light rail applications, on streetcars, trams. They're very useful because they do dampen out vibrations, they dampen out noise, and this is important when you're operating a streetcar through a residential area. People don't want their windows rattled every time a tram goes by.
Streetcars in Germany, like these in Hanover, have been equipped with resilient wheels for decades. But streetcars aren't supposed to travel for long distances or at speeds of 200 kilometers per hour. Intercity express trains are. How does that affect wheel wear? That's the kind of thing they study here at the Fraunhofer Institute in Darmstadt, Germany, where they put wheels through their paces on a high-tech test rig. They spin at up to 350 kilometers an hour and can be subjected to high pressure from both the top and sides. Running at the technical limits, there is an increased danger of stress fractures in the rim of a resilient wheel. Because of the malleable rubber layer inside, the steel rim bends ever so slightly with each rotation. The higher the speed, the greater the stress. Over time, that leads to fractures that can be seen under a microscope. In practice, a stress fracture looks like this. While the lines resemble timelines on the inside of a tree trunk, they are actually minuscule cracks that expand until they reach a breaking point. It is that kind of fracture that happened inside the wheel rim of the first carriage of ICE train number 884.
This is the part of the wheel that broke.
State investigator Gunnar Bosse points to the outside surface of the wheel rim, which rode on the track, then the inside, the part that was in contact with the rubber cushioning.
There is a continual crack originating from the inside of this carriage wheel, starting at the center and growing in circles outward over a period of a few weeks, until it cracked in this area spontaneously.
Nobody knows precisely how many kilometers a high-speed train has to travel for such a crack to develop, but it's possible to make an educated guess.
Professor Lange from the University of Braunschweig analyzed the worn spot on the wheel very clearly and noted that most probably the starting of the crack, that is, the first fracture, occurred some 10,000 kilometers earlier, and that fracture kept expanding as the wheel continued to roll over several days or weeks.
And finally, just before 11 a.m. on June 3rd, 1998, the fracture in the rim cracks wide open. But a big mystery remains. Why did the train not derail right where the wheel broke? Amazingly, it kept moving at high speed for more than 5 kilometers.
The wheel rim blasted off, the rubber elements flew away, and what remained was just the perforated wheel disc, which was grooved on either side and was therefore able to continue to roll on the rails.
So if the inner part of the broken wheel was able to roll for 5 kilometers, why not further? What exactly happened just outside Eschede to create such a catastrophe? There must have been something else which led to the accident itself. Could it have been the now demolished bridge? Clearly, it played a role in the accident, but at what stage? Was it the bridge, or something before the bridge, that sent Intercity Express number 884 off the rails with such tragic consequences? June 1998. Germans are in mourning for weeks, struggling to cope with the aftermath of the worst high-speed train crash ever.
There were many prayer services, and many of the people I talked to begged me to pray with them. In the face of all the sorrow there, I often had trouble myself to find the words.
Accident investigators also face challenges. A broken wheel on carriage number 1 explains why passengers heard a loud bang and then felt violent shaking 5.5 kilometers before the crash. But what actually made the train derail just outside Eschede? What role did the bridge play? It was built to replace a ground-level crossing when high-speed trains were first introduced. The bridge consisted of 3 sections of road decking, supported by concrete pillars on either side of the tracks. The pillars were placed just a few meters from the track, where trains roared through at high speed. What impact did the bridge have on the accident?
A good indicator of what might have happened was the fact that part of the train was on one side of the bridge and the head end of the train was on the other.
But had the train derailed right at the bridge or before the bridge? When investigators examine the track, another clue falls into place. The 8-meter-long piece of track that had skewered carriage number 1 and carriage number 2 together. It is, in fact, what remains of a guardrail. Guardrails are used to guide trains at turnouts to help them switch smoothly onto a parallel track. And sure enough, the stretch of track at the bridge contained a series of turnouts. At the first turnout, the broken wheel caught on the guardrail.
The train was still traveling at a very high speed, 112 miles an hour, when the broken wheel struck this guardrail. The wheel struck the guardrail so hard that it actually pulled it up out of the track and broke it in half.
With that, the rear bogie of the carriage derailed to the right. When the bogie reached the next turnout, it released a switch and destroyed it, so that all the following carriages were derailed.
So 2 turnouts caused the derailment. The first caused carriage number 1 to go off the track. The next one derailed the rest of the train. It was a combination of events that created the disaster. By itself, the broken wheel was a problem, but not necessarily a deadly one. But a broken wheel, combined with a series of turnouts and a massive concrete structure, turned what might have been a small accident into a catastrophe.
The bridge really made this a disaster. It really contributed to the severity of the accident. Trains, normally when we have train accidents, they don't hit anything so solid as this particular bridge. Trains are very massive, and usually they can push whatever they encounter out of the way, whether it's trees, buildings, whatever. But with a concrete bridge coming down in front of the train, this train basically ran into a brick wall.
Now the entire tragedy can be replayed in sequence. 10:57 a.m. ICE train number 884 is traveling toward the town of Eschede at 200 kilometers an hour. Suddenly, Passengers at the front of the train hear a loud noise, and the train starts to shake. This is caused when a wheel rim on the rear bogie of carriage number 1 breaks. The wheel rim gets caught in the bogie, damages the train's undercarriage, and rips the floor of carriage number 1. Despite the broken wheel, the train keeps moving at high speed for another 5.5 kilometers until it reaches a series of turnouts. At the first turnout, the broken wheel catches on the guardrail and rips it out of the track. The 8-meter-long piece of steel pierces through the floor of carriage number 1. The rear bogie of carriage number 1 veers off to the right, and at the next turnout, the rest of the train derails.
The ICE ran here along this track, the same one on which this train is passing right now.
The lead locomotive is the only thing that stays on the track. It decouples automatically from the rest of the train and travels 2 full kilometers before coming to a stop. Even though the rest of the train is now off the rails, it's moving with such speed that it just keeps coming. Carriages 1 and 2 pass under the bridge and come to rest a few hundred meters on the other side of it.
And the third car hit the bridge pillars, demolished them, and then the bridge started tumbling down.
Carriage number 3 is damaged from hitting the bridge, but makes it through. The train is still moving so fast that carriage number 4 gets through as well. Starting with carriage number 5, the real catastrophe happens. From here, the rest of the train is doomed.
Carriage number 5 went through the bridge sideways. You can see here how the road sections from the bridge hit the roof at an angle. That made the roof cave in, and finally crushed the back half of carriage number 5 completely, right down to the floor.
With the bridge collapsed, the rest of the train has nowhere to go but straight into it.
Der Rest des Zuges hat sich vom Wagen 6 an der Brücke auf Eschede.
The rest of the train, starting at car number 6, folded like an accordion against the bridge. Here, you have the front end of carriage number 6, carriages 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, as well as the rear engine, followed in the same way.
The most tragic high-speed train crash ever takes less than 5 seconds to unfold. A few seconds that change the passengers' lives forever.
In dem 12. Wagen
Udo Bausch remains in a coma for 17 days. He has a fractured skull and broken bones in his face, shoulders, and legs. During those 17 days, he undergoes 6 major operations.
I spent months in pain, getting up in the morning in pain, falling asleep at night in pain. And when the doctors finally found suitable painkillers for me, I felt like a new person.
But the crash of ICE number 884 has left Udo with permanent injuries. He has not been able to go back to work. There have been a couple of happy developments. He has a new daughter, and her godfather is none other than Andreas Effenhausen, the policeman who saved his life. Together, they visit the memorial to those who lost their lives on that sunny June day in 1998. Many of the rescuers are still suffering too, from post-traumatic stress so severe that they have not been able to carry on normal lives. Pastor Stallman has counseled some of them.
He said, in every night all the dead bodies I had to collect, they stand at my bed. I'm not able to sleep anymore with light switched off.
There was a trial. 3 engineers were charged with manslaughter and causing bodily harm through negligence. They were accused of putting the resilient wheel into service before carrying out sufficient testing. While the three men were ordered to pay fines of 10,000 euros each, they were not actually convicted. Today, intercity express trains are no longer equipped with rubber-cushioned wheels.
Und mittlerweile fahren diese Züge wieder mit den vollen Monoblockrädern, aber mit einem
These trains are running once again with monoblock wheels, but with a bogie that is different from the previous one that was on the train. And the bogie in use today is air suspended, thus overcoming vibration.
Intercity express trains still rush through Eschede without stopping, ignoring the little town that can no longer ignore them. Six years after the trip that derailed his life, Udo Bausch is taking trains again. He even travels between Hanover and Eschede to visit the man who saved him. Traveling that stretch of track that changed both their lives forever.